Welcome back, guys. This is Kimberly Graham, your co-host of the Affluent Marriage Podcast, and we're so excited to have you here for the continuation of our previous episode. Before we get started, I want to make sure that you guys know that you can follow us and converse with us at the Affluent Marriage Pod on Instagram. That's where you can find us to connect with us, like our content, share our content, any of those types of things, but we also want to hear your stories there as well. So excited for the new stuff that you're going to learn from today's episode, and without further ado, let's get back to the show.
We mentioned this pitfall in our previous one, but ignoring the importance of an emergency fund, right? An emergency fund is a crucial component of any budget, of any single budget. Unexpected expenses are a part of life. It provides a financial safety net for unexpected events and emergencies. Neglecting to prioritize an emergency fund can leave you vulnerable to financial setbacks that can derail your budgeting. I don't want to talk about the emergency fund in regards to its importance. I just want you to tell me quickly, when should this be established? Like, I'm trying to create this budget. I'm trying to get my life on track. How do I allocate all my funds to all the places it needs to go? I need to be investing 529s, emergency fund, pay off debts. Like, where does this fall in like terms of importance? Like, where do you start filling in this emergency fund?
I recommend that my clients focus on a mini emergency fund ASAP. As soon as they start working with me with their funding, I say you need to reserve as much as you possibly can to a place that makes you feel comfortable. And I know that sounds backwards because a lot of them are like, well, shouldn't I focus on my debt? Shouldn't I focus on this? Shouldn't I focus on the interest rates? Can the interest rates? I'm not really concerned about that. The reason being is that if you don't have an amount of money that can help you either get a month ahead of expenses or half of a month or something so that you have something there, you're constantly going to be on edge and stressed about your finances. You need to have that additional cash flow because let's just say a common pitfall, common excuse, a common like task that people will do is they'll get an extra amount of money, they'll throw it all at a debt. And they'll throw it all at the debt and they'll say, hooray, like I paid down my balance or I paid it more or whatever. And then an emergency comes up. What are you going to go to? That same credit card you just paid extra down, now it has to be used again. No. So put it all in reserve so you have it so that when you're actually in the you're in the portion of time where you're able to pay extra towards your debt, then you're able to say, okay, pay extra towards debt. And an emergency comes up, you have an emergency fund that you can throw at that emergency while still focusing on paying down the debt. And then, you might have to pivot a little bit to fill back up that emergency fund, but then you go right back at it, right? It's supposed to keep you in energy, of flow of paying things off instead of, stopping. It just feels like you're constantly stuttering, right? So build those reserves first.
Cash is so important. I don't think people know how to differentiate between a need and a want with credit cards, because when life happens, they're quick to say, oh, well, I have to do this. Like, they asked me to be in their wedding. I have to go. Mm-mm. I have to buy that suit. I have to wear that color. So I don't have the cash. So I got to use the credit card. It's an emergency. I have to do it. There were so many times in our journey to pay off our student loans that people said, we want you to come to the family reunion, or we want you to come to our wedding, and we'd have to fly there. And there were a lot of times that we had to say no.
Yeah.
Because we literally did not have the cash. But if we had the credit card,
how many times have we said yes? I think
we would have had a tough time.
Yeah.
We might have still said a no a few times, but I bet you there would have been a few events where we were like, this person is this to me, or this person's that to me, or they invited me to their wedding and I was in their wedding, or they were in my wedding. And I don't know that we would have been able to say no to everything if we had a credit card.
Yeah. I feel like here's something else that we did though too during that journey is that there were times, especially after we initially got out of the debt, where we got invited out to, parties or weddings of some sort, and I would go. Maybe, or you would go. And what we would do is we would, again, communication, stop using it as an excuse. We would have the conversation. Okay, hey, I need to go to so-and-so's wedding. I need to get a suit, whatever. And so we would say, okay, how much are we talking here? And we would like actually.
Can you rewear a dress you've worn before?
No, more like for you. If you had to get like a suit for the wedding or whatever, how much are the tickets? How much is this going to cost? And so we would have like an understanding of how much it would be. And we would say, okay, well, you know what? I feel like that's like a week's worth of tutoring or 2 weeks worth of tutoring. Why don't we just use that cash and we'll use that for the wedding for this month, that everything else can go towards the debt. And we would come up with a compromise. We would 100% do that often. So that was, we would have like a limit to where we would say, okay, we would use the cash for that. But to be like, oh, everyone has to come out to this, this party in Florida and it's a family reunion and it's going to cost like $2,000 for everyone to be down there. That's a hard no. Like, nope. Not at this juncture. But there were a couple of times where we had to pivot, right? But like, again, we're not over here going, well, if we had the credit card, we know for a fact it would have been very easy and tempting for us to have been like, we'll just put it on the credit card. It's okay. We'll pay it back later.
I brought that up to say your emergency fund should be cash that you've saved up and put in a bank because it's going to be hard for you. You're not going to want to touch that cash.
No.
We hate touching our emergency fund, and it helps us decide what truly is an emergency and what isn't. If your credit card is an emergency fund for you, I'm going to argue that it's not.
It's not.
And you're going to have a tough time differentiating between a need and a want. Mm-hmm. And you're going to dip into that credit card as an emergency fund.
That's very interesting because, yes, absolutely. There's a lot of people who are so scared of using their emergency fund, their savings, but are so quick to use that credit card.
It's too easy.
It's too easy. It's too easy. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me how easy it is to get money like that.
Another budgeting pitfall is not being able or not adjusting your budget as circumstances change.
This. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Life's full of changes, and your budget should adapt to reflect those changes. Failing to adjust your budget when your income or expenses change can render your budget ineffective. Mm-hmm. Regularly reviewing and updating your budget is essential to ensure it remains relevant and useful. During the summer months, we drive a lot more, so we're using a whole lot more gas. Mm-hmm. Especially when we're traveling to South Carolina, if we're not making changes to our automotive and our gas like intake or on our budget, then the numbers that we set for every month is going to be inaccurate.
Yeah,
we're going to go over because normally we fill up every week, and now because we're traveling so much, we're filling up maybe twice on a trip.
Yeah.
And now we're overspending on gas. But if we didn't allocate that, if we didn't make changes to our budget, now we're over.
Yeah. And if we, again, use that and said, oh, we failed, right? We have completely lost. We've lost the point.
At this.
What we need to do is before
budgeting's impossible.
The month begins, we say, what do we know is coming up? What do we need to reallocate? How do we replan for the month that we're going on vacation? Like, it doesn't end for you. Like, this money is consistently, it's an energy that's consistently moving. So that means that as your life changes, your attention to your finances and allocation of your finances should change. It's ever evolving. So you have to be willing to look at it.
A perfect example of this is when you decided to stay home. We knew our number was 800, but something that we had to change to our budget because our life was changing was some of our additional categories.
Right.
We decided to alter those, and in order to keep you home, which was our dream, we did have to take a hit. Yeah. And we cut back on our vacation, we cut back on our entertainment, we cut back on our clothing, we cut back on a lot of categories.
Those additional categories.
So that all you had to make was $800. We could pay our bills and you could raise our daughters.
And 1,200 was like our big number. Like if we got to 1,200, we could replenish all of those additional savings. So that then told me my goal for my business, which is why when I talk to a lot of my business owners who are also focused on their home stuff, I ask them, what are your goals for your home finances? Where's everything going on here? Because if you know the minimum and the maximum that you need to bring in, It's going to inform what you do in your business. So instead, where everyone else in this business at the time I was working in direct sales were telling me you need to hit 10K months, you need to hit 5K months or whatever, I didn't really care about that. In my mind, based on the 50% of what I was paying myself, I was like, I need to make like $2,000 or I need to make $2,500. If I make between, $2,000, if I make between $2,000, if I make between $2,500, that's my high. If I'm able to do that, I've done everything I need to do for my family, which, I felt successful when I did that. And there was not a lot of pressure on me in my business to do that. That was my only focus, to make $2,500. So whereas some people would look at that and go, that's all you made? For me, I was like, heck yeah, look what I got to do with that money. That's the perspective shift that, kind of needs to be had. And then everything from that point on that you're able to bring up, if you're able to shoot further than that, that's icing on the cake right there.
So again, I say, where your attention goes, your energy flows and results show. Your attention and your energy have to be on your budget, not just at the beginning. A budget is not something you make one time and then it's done and you set it and forget it. It's not like compound interest in an investment. And even investments you should check in on. But it's not just something you create that 1 month and then it's the same budget every single month for the rest of your life. Your budget needs constant revision, constant editing, constant adapting.
Maybe that's
every single month.
Maybe that's why it's so hard. People find investing sexy because it is set it and forget it, and because it grows.
Right. Like we said, if you leave something invested for the next 30 years, 100% return, you're going to see profit.
Yeah. I just feel like it's very interesting. Like that's what people think. But the idea of budgeting, managing money, it is consistent.
You have to stay on top of it.
You can't let up.
You have to put your attention on it. You have to put your energy into it. You have to change those line items and say, oh, my HOA went up this month. Oh, my phone bill went up. Oh, my internet went up.
Yep.
I got to make changes. Or, I'm not traveling as much. That's going down. Or, I don't need as much clothes. That goes down. Food goes up. Whatever it is, you have to make those changes to your line items to reflect your lifestyle.
Yep. Because otherwise, again, what's the alternative? How you living out there, guys? What's the alternative if you don't do that?
So your budget can't be too rigid and inflexible because it's not going to account for those unexpected changes that could happen in your financial situation.
Right.
Next, neglecting to prioritize savings.
I feel like this one speaks for itself, y'all. You need to save money.
Saving for the future should be a priority in your budget. Unfortunately, many people make that mistake of not allocating enough funds towards savings or treating savings as an afterthought. They're just living for today, living for that vacation, for the food, for the battle station, which is your gaming center.
Such a nerd.
Right? They're just living for the now. They're not thinking for tomorrow. It's important to prioritize saving and allocate a portion of your income toward long-term goals such as retirement or education. I'm going to put some of these things on my Instagram that I've been reading in, this retirement book that I'm reading. But a lot of people age 45 to 55 have serious concerns that they don't have a large enough nest egg to retire. Majority.
That's crazy.
Of 45 to 50. It's really starting to hit them because they've not been saving their whole life. And as you creep closer to those retirement years and you think to yourself, oh man, I'm like 15 years away from 65. Like 15 years is still a long time. But when you think, what have I been doing since I got into this workforce at 22, 23? And here it is 20 years later, I don't have much to show. And I've only got about 15 years or so left before I get to those retirement days. You cannot neglect prioritizing saving.
You can't, from the very beginning. And the thing is, we stress it so much to our kids. How many times do you hear people talk to their kids and they say, oh, you got to save, you got to save, you got to save. But a lot of adults don't actually do it. They don't actually save.
I get it. No one likes to see big numbers come out of their check that they don't get to spend. no one wants to see, $400 or $500 out of my paycheck going to an investment, going to this retirement, going to this pension, going to whatever mutual fund or whatever it is. Like that sucks. Like I'd much rather have that $400, $500 right now. I can go buy this new appliance, or I can go buy this new game, or I can go buy that new golf club or whatever it is. Like I get it. That's fun. That's sexy. But is it fun? Or when you retire, you probably want to at least maintain the lifestyle that you have right now.
Right.
But the truth is,
you can't even maintain the lifestyle you have.
when you retire, you don't even want the lifestyle you have. You want better.
Yeah.
Because not only do you want to maintain the life you have now, but you also want to travel. You want to go places. You want to see things. You want to spoil your grandkids or whatever it is. You're going to spend more, or you'd like to spend even more when you retire than what you're living right now. But if you're living right now by spending all that money, you're going to live worse off when you retire.
But like I just
you might not even be able to retire. You might have to keep working.
Right. But like, just like I said, there are some people who they really can't even afford what they currently have. They don't even know it. That's the thing too, right? They don't even know that they can't afford the lifestyle they have because they have a paycheck coming in and they don't save. It all just gets blown out to different things that are happening in their lives for that month. They're living paycheck to paycheck. And they're like, yeah, I make good money, but there's not really much to show for it. And, then comes retirement and you're like, oh, well, I'm just going to get the same amount that I was before, but you're not actually saving anything. And you're using most of it on credit cards. Like you're actually overspending what you actually are bringing in. Like you can't afford the lifestyle you currently have. So how are you going to say that you have enough in retirement when you can't even afford what you have now? And you haven't even started saving for retirement.
It hurts when you first start.
Yeah.
But after you've done it for months and years on end, it becomes a norm and you just get used to your paycheck being whatever that dollar number is after $300, $400, $500 have gone to a pension or to an investment or to giving or whatever it is. It just becomes a norm.
Yeah.
And your budget is flexible.
Yep.
You know how to tweak your numbers and make it so that you live on that number after your money has automated, been pulled out and gone to investments and savings. You have what you have left and you use that to live your life so that you can retire in affluence. Because
that's really what we're after, right?
Right. What's the point? Why do people budget? Why do people do this? For that right there.
Yep.
That's the whole point of living your life on this affluent budget, is so that you can retire in affluence and not retire broke. And
not only just retire in affluence, but that you can start setting your sights on your affluent living right now. Because I can tell you the type of things that we're doing right now, I did not think that we would do until we were retired, not tired.
I'm tired.
But the fact that we're doing it now is because we have set our sights on a lifestyle that this is what we desire for ourselves. This is what we desire to live on. And we are able to live that life now instead of waiting until we're in retirement. And that to me is such a flex. You can't get that until you get out of these excuses that we're naming here. Once you get out of these excuses, then it becomes so much easier for you to see, like, you know what? I'm not too far from my ideal dream lifestyle. I can do these things now and I don't have to wait until retirement. Or if you're close to retirement, I can do that in retirement and do it like very well and actually appreciate it. So, gotta do those things.
Another common pitfall that people experience when they're trying to budget is impulse spending, or just a simple lack of self-control, right? Budgeting requires discipline. It requires self-control. Succumbing to impulse spending and deviating from your budget is a common pitfall. It's essential to be mindful of your spending habits and develop strategies to avoid impulsive purchases that can throw off your budget. Talk to me here. What's another point?
Well, you don't want to underestimate your expenses. And, you want to make sure this goes back to the tracking thing. And when you don't have that self-control, you can underestimate like how much you actually need for certain things. And you just need to be real with yourself. Like I said, this is a very much like a numbers game. You have to know what the numbers are. You have to recognize that it's not a reflection necessarily of you, that you need to be like, I'm so emotional about it and I'm going to be in my feels about it, but really looking at it as it is up to me to make this shift. We can have lack of self-control even in the small expenses. And so if we notice that we have certain habits, like I have some clients that love to go to the gas station and constantly get, a pack of candy or, any of those types of things that they want to have. And they notice and they see the constant string of amounts that they're taking out. That's when they recognize, oh, you know what? This might be a little bit too much, right? I can live without going every single day. I can maybe do it twice a week, right? No one's telling you that you have to stop. Just like we said at the beginning, if you want to spend $1,200 on groceries, go for it. But if that's your priority, then you need to make sure that that's on the top of your list, but something else has got to give. It's the same thing here.
It can't impede your goals.
Right.
I'll say this, impulse spending. If you know you're an impulse spender, then you need to plan your budget around that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call you an impulse spender, Kim, but I will say that you have a budget, as I do, for clothing and hair care.
Yep.
Which also kind of is a blanket account for those miscellaneous expenses. If you go out to the store and you're like, man, I really wanted this.
And it happens.
So I bought it.
Often.
It was amazing.
Yep.
Best purchase of my life.
Best purchase of my life.
I'll say, all right, well then what is that coming from? And you'll say, oh,
one of those.
one of my accounts. How much did I have in there?
I turn into such a teenager. I don't know. Just put it somewhere. It's in one of those accounts.
Just pull it. So we pull it from your clothing or your hair care, right?
Whatever has the most money.
Whichever one has the most money. But the point is, you have these accounts set in place where every single month we are contributing a certain dollar amount, whether it's 50 or 75, whatever it is, to that fund. So during the month, when you're out and about and you see something cute and you want it, you buy it, and then it comes from that account. The only thing is you have to be an adult and actually evaluate and track and review that account to say, how much money do I have
left?
Did I go over in that budget? So you have to be aware of that. So if you're an impulsive spender, then you need to set up an account, a line item for your impulsive spending. But you also just need to be an adult. Review, track, and if the money's not there, don't spend it, because now we're impeding on our short-term goals and our long-term goals.
Right. So working around that. I've also decided, even in my business, I want to give myself a certain amount of money that I can spend every single week, that I don't really have to answer to it, where I can say, oh, I want to go, give to this charity, or I want to, give extra to this person, or I just want to be able to, treat my husband or myself or a family member or whatever. I can do that without feeling like, oh my gosh, like this is impeding on some of the other goals that I have personally. So you can do this in so many different ways, so you can continue to feel like you're ahead of things. So don't underestimate or nickel and dime your own budget. Every second counts.
I'm going to briefly touch on this one because we've already talked about it, so we're not going to go into great detail about it. I just want to name it so that people hear it. Another common pitfall that people experience with their budget is overlooking debt repayment. We talked about when the number gets to be so large, like with student loans or with these Ford F-150s, people have like $1,000 auto payment every month.
Crazy.
And they're buying $70, $80, $90, $100,000 trucks. Insane to me, but people do it. If that's what they want to do with their money, that's fine. That's their choice. Just be an adult and be able to pay your loan. But a lot of people just say, it is what it is. This is life. I live a life of debt. The average American has $96,000 in loans, or in debt, I mean. They just accept it and they say this is life. Unacceptable. You can't do that. All right. So do not overlook your debt repayment. That is a common pitfall for budgeting. Here's a big one that is really near and dear to our hearts here at the Affluent Marriage Podcast. Another pitfall is not involving your family or spouse. Failing to involve your family, your spouse, your partner, whomever in the budgeting process can lead to conflicts, surprise, surprise, and make it harder to stick to your budget.
Yeah. Very similar to the thing that I said earlier, right? It spills over into everything. You know, something doesn't get paid, or something is overpaid, or something is whatever, or not overpaid. Something is, you went over on a budget item. And then all of a sudden there's this tension between, you know, your spouse, your kids, the way that you cook your food, and little things can just set you off, all because of this one noticed thing that you didn't have correct on your budget. And so when you don't involve your spouse, it creates even more tension, because now it feels like you're in a boxing ring and it's one person versus the other. And that's not how it's supposed to feel. Like, you're not going to feel supported. You're not going to feel like you can continue. You're not going to feel, you're just going to feel just icky. Like, that's the best way I can say it. Like, I hear so many stories day in and day out of spouses not wanting to talk to each other about finances and fighting about it, and it's just icky.
It's easy to fall into the blame game when you're overspending. If we as a family overspent on groceries and now we have a deficit for the month, and you just bought a dress, or I just went and bought a new bowling ball, whatever it is, it's easy to do the blame game and say, babe, we're over this month, and you just went out and bought a brand new dress.
So, yep.
We're over this month, and you just went bowling with your friends. Like, we don't have the money for this. Mm-hmm. Like, we're over this month, and you're spending our money or spending my money this way. Like, that, we need to be responsible. And the truth is, the dress, the bowling ball, that's not the issue. Mm-hmm. The issue was we were over on groceries.
Yeah.
You probably had, and we do have, a budget for your clothing. We do have a budget for entertainment. Those aren't the categories that are over. But now that we've reviewed, now that we've evaluated, we're over on groceries, we need to cut back on eating because we're in a deficit. And now we need to look at the other categories in our budget and say, what are we going to pull from to take this negative to a positive?
They sound so simple, these conversations, but people put so much energy and emotion behind them.
Well, the other person is always the problem, right? It's never you. It's never your fault that the budget is not sticking to it. But also, if you don't bring them in on the process, they don't know what the numbers are. How much do I have to spend on entertainment every month? How much do I have to spend on going out with my friends? How much do I have to spend on, right? If they don't know the numbers, if they don't know what their limits are, if they don't even know what the goals are, what are we working towards, then to them, they say, we have extra money at the end of every month. Why can't I use it?
Exactly. So that's why the process is so important, to be able to walk them through why. Why are we doing this? What is the point? Where is it going? And when you get them into, and we talk about this in other times, the bigger dream, then it becomes easier for them to say, oh, shoot, we really wanted that money so that it can go towards X, Y, and Z. I understand why that's a big deal to go over on our groceries. So involve them. When you don't, it is a pitfall, and it becomes an excuse, because many people use it as an excuse. I can't get on a budget. I can't understand where my money is going because of my spouse. You're using it as an excuse. There is a way around that.
We say it all the time, lead by example. Create a budget, stick to the budget, your budget, show them how it works. Show them that it is working and that money is being saved and that you are achieving your dreams and your goals.
You decided to marry this person for better or for worse. Again, this is your best friend. Let's stop acting like we don't know how to have a conversation with this person. You chose this person. So you need to talk to them. Like,
speaking to that, another pitfall is people give up too soon.
Yeah.
They start their budget just like anything, right? New Year's resolutions. People have these great ideas and goals and dreams, and I want my life to be so much better. And they're like, I just need to do this. And they start to do it. And then they see their first speed bump. They see their first roadblock. And they're like, you know what? Turning this thing around.
It's over.
Let's just go back home.
Never mind.
Let's do things the way that we've always been done.
Listen.
Do not give up too soon just because you hit your first roadblock. You hit your first speed bump.
I keep imagining, like, I am attracted to people who are big dreamers.
Me?
No, yes, I am attracted to you. I just thought I knew you were going to say something smart. I'm attracted to dreamers. And I love stories about dreamers and stories about people who are doing the impossible and stories about people who just defied odds. And the reason why I love them is because they listen to all the negativity, all the people saying, no, you can't, all the people saying this could never happen for you. And they kept pushing, they kept moving, they kept saying, nope, I believe in myself. I believe in what's out there. And that takes a special kind of person. And if you can see that type of, if you like that type of like spirit in that person, like you still have that in you, that is very much cultivated. It can be cultivated in you as well. So don't be afraid to, I don't know, so get down to the depths of that. And if you're like, no, I really believe that I can do this, then use that as your fuel to keep on going.
I love that. I have one more budgeting pitfall for you. So do not forget to make room when you're budgeting for the fun and the enjoyment. Sometimes we get so focused on the long-term goals, the short-term goals, the dreams, the visions, the plans, the better life that we want, the retirement that we want. We get so focused on these other things that we just try to like cut back on everything. We certainly try to do this when we tried to pay off our $76,000 in student loans. And we did accomplish that in 2.5 years, but we cut everything. And when we don't leave room for fun and enjoyment, that's when you can burn out. We still tried to do things that were fun and enjoyable when we were in that time of just throwing everything at the loans. And I need to emphasize to people that as they're creating their budget, and I know we're speaking to all walks of life, right? We're talking to those people that have student loan debt up to their eyeballs. We're talking to people that are out of debt and are just trying to live their affluent life. We're talking to all walks, right? You have to have room in your budget for fun and enjoyment. This is planned, right? This is not an irregular expense. It's not just, oh, you know, I want to go out today. Like, no, plan for that. Plan for fun and enjoyment. The activity can be spontaneous. It can come out of nowhere, but know that every month we've set aside $100 for entertainment or whatever it is for enjoyment.
Right.
Include that in your budget. You have to, so that you don't burn out.
The other thing that's really great about the fun and enjoyment part of things is that like when you don't do that, that's when you start to feel like the walls are coming in around you and you feel like you're like, you know, just that's when the scarcity can start filling in you, and you don't want to live in scarcity. We want to live in abundance. That's also where it can become where you can foster this feeling of guilt, so that when you are like, oh, you know what, I'd like to go and get my nails done, you feel guilty about going to get your nails done. Oh, I would like to go to this trip. I feel guilty about going on this trip. And so when you're feeling those feelings of guilt and those feelings of like, oh man, should I do this? Should I even spend my money this way? We don't want to feel that way with our finances. So how do we combat that when we're learning how to manage our money? We built it in the same way we're building in all of these understanding of like how to manage our money, these habits and all that stuff. We also need to build in a habit of, okay, here's how I'm going to enjoy my money today without guilt. I'm going to go and enjoy this coffee. I'm going to go enjoy going out with my girlfriends for brunch. I'm going to go enjoy getting my nails done. And I'm not going to feel any guilt about this at all. And it takes time for some of you who maybe have had these feelings and perspectives around money management that have always felt very like guilt ridden, especially if that's how you grew up. But it's up to you to change that narrative. I want to feel good when I'm going out. I want to feel good when I'm going with my husband to a vacation and not feel like, oh no, do we have enough money? I don't want to feel that way anymore. So it's really up to you to say, what steps do I need to take in order to make sure that I am okay, that I feel good about everything that I'm doing while I go on this vacation and spend like I want to spend. So you have to add in that room.
I'm going to speak to both sides of this coin here. Life is meant to be enjoyed. So you can't have a budget that's so restrictive that it doesn't allow any discretionary spending. You need to be able to go out and live a little. I'm not against that. But life All right. Most people are trying to retire at 65. And average life expectancy is well into the 80s. So you're looking at least 20 years of a retirement, right?
Yeah.
So I want you to enjoy life. I want you to not have such a restrictive budget that you can have this discretionary spending. You can do what you want to do, but your budget, you have to at least stick to the budget and have money set aside for savings, because when you get to retirement, you don't want to have this life of enjoyment, get to 65, and then the next 20 years be the most miserable time of your life because you don't have a nest egg. You don't have anything saved up. So please have a budget that allows freedom, that allows you to spend, allows you to have a good time, but also allows you to put money aside for savings. So when you get to 65, that life of enjoyment can continue on and further on.
Right.
You don't want to have a life of misery your last 20, 25 years.
Which again goes back to what we said at the very beginning. If we had continued to just do the bare minimum of what we were doing in our budgeting, we would have just gotten out of our student loan debt at 34. And thinking about that makes me want to have a very physical reaction to that, because living the way we were living for 10 years would not have worked out.
I'm going to hear about this a lot after the podcast.
Seriously,
guys.
We're going to have a long conversation about this, because that's absolutely,
she's going to want to go down what if and memory lane.
It just would have I would have had, nope, that just would not have happened. So I say that to say that what you were just saying, like, you want to have fun and enjoyment. And so a lot of people looked at those 28 months that we spent managing, getting out of debt, and they go, oh, what kind of a life was that? No. What kind of a life are you living? Like, you're still concerned about where your money is going. You're still overwhelmed about your debt. And you've been living this way for 20 plus years. Yeah, it was 28 months and, we were really focused on where the money was going. But in 28 months after that, we had full control over every dollar that came into our money or into our accounts. And we were able to do anything our little hearts desired because we knew we could handle it. We knew we could build up to it. That is a life where you truly feel in control. So I would say we're living our best life.
Absolutely.
So if you meet,
no question.
If you are like, you know what, I want to understand, I want to invest more, I want to do some things, I want you to understand that there might be a couple of months or a couple of years where it's a little bit more intense, where you're going to have to know where your money is going, add an extra income, all that stuff, work a little harder. But then after that's done, you're going to have like not just 20 years from 65 to 80 something. Like, come on, like you want to live your best life before that, right? So what is 1 year or 1 year and a half of really focusing on where your money is going and saying, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because gosh darn it, I deserve it, so that you could have the rest of your life to just live the way that you want to live before retirement age.
Yeah, I'm definitely not against some short-term sacrifice for some long-term gain, whether that be to pay off debts or to save up for a vehicle or for a house or for whatever it is. Make some short-term sacrifices so that you can have that big chunk of cash that you can throw at those major purchases. Avoiding pitfalls requires discipline, awareness, regular review of your budget.
Notice motivation isn't anywhere in there.
Listen, we're on season 2 now. Let it go.
I'm just saying.
Motivation is great.
Discipline's better.
By being mindful about these common budgeting pitfalls, you can enhance your financial management skills and increase your chances of achieving your financial goals in life. I go back to that quote, right? Where your attention goes, energy flows, and results show. I can tell you without even looking at your budget, just by looking at your results, where your energy has been, where your attention has been. Show me your results. I can show you your energy and your attention. I can tell you, you've been on your grind. You got a budget. You stick to it month after month. I can tell because this is how you're living. This is what you set yourself up for retirement. Oh, I can tell by your results. But if you're barely scraping by, and I don't care what your dollar, what you make, you can make 6 figures. Your spouse can make 6 figures. You can make American average $50K per, household or whatever. I don't care. If you don't have the results,
it's going to be very obvious
that you don't know how to stick to or create or manage a budget. So show me your results. I'll tell you where your attention and your energy is flowing from.
Yep. That's so good. So I think it's really important for you to be thinking about this. Like if we're talking about a CTA of what you're going to be able to do from this, I want you to be thinking about any excuses that you've given yourself. What excuses do you commonly come back to when you're thinking about, picking up your pencil and saying, okay, I'm going to start my budget again, or taking out your Excel spreadsheet? What excuses do you tell yourself when you happen to make a little bit of a mistake, when it's time to manage your money or time to go back and you're going, oh, I forgot that money date that I had with myself or with my spouse, and you are kind of feeling a little bit like uneasy about it? What excuses come to your mind? And you got to ask yourself, is that excuse stronger than what you desire for yourself? So in the CTA, I want you to write down any excuse that you have, and I want you to just kind of create a column. Like, what excuse have you given yourself around your finances? And really ask yourself, where's the origin coming from? Like, where is that happening? See if on the other side of this little paper, if you're writing it, like all the excuses on one side, on the other side, I want you to write what would happen if you diminished. What if that excuse wasn't there anymore? What action would completely eliminate that excuse? So if the excuse is there's just not enough money, is there an opportunity for me to make more somewhere else? If your excuse is I just don't think I'm good enough, but what if you were? What if you did? What if you tried? What would happen? What do you think that you'd be worthy of if you really thought about it? So go down this list and really start thinking about what things you would say to yourself if you were talking to you like you're your best friend. What types of things could you say to eliminate those excuses? And then you have to ask yourself, are you going to take action? Or are you going to sit there and stare at the list? That's a really big CTA, but I hope you guys take it to heart.
I could tell you were an educator in a past life.
Right, I know. Take one piece of paper, fold it like a hot dog.
Hot dog or hamburger style. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in today and listening into some of these excuses that are pretty common among households across the nation and across the world. These are budgeting pitfalls that are really, really real, that people really experience. And they do. They have a vice grip on society. But thank you for listening in. Hopefully you were able to hear a few that might have, stuck out to you and said, this is something that I'm dealing with and I need to tackle. Or maybe you're doing really well and you're like, I'm going to make sure that these are never a part of my household. Whichever it is, hopefully you're able to get something from this. And I know that if you were listening, you did. So thank you guys so much for checking us out. This is the Affluent Marriage Podcast. This is my wife, Kimberly Graham, the financial coach.
Sup? We talked about in the other episode that maybe I'm going to change my title, but
she's still thinking about it. When you do, I'll write it in the script. And I am the educator, Daniel Graham. Thank you guys so much. Take care. Go live in love, walk in wealth. See you guys.
Bye.